Chris and Andrew here. Hopefully, our volume levels are good. I think I'm a little loud. I'm going to lower mine a little bit. Last week I was looking at the video from our last thing, and I thought our volumes were good. Then halfway through, someone asked them to change them, and I think I got louder than you. But
Hmm.
test, test, test. Yeah, I think we're good. So,
Yeah.
people watching, let us know if our volumes are good or if I need to adjust one or the other. So, just to catch up on some things we talked about last time, I meant to look up how this is pronounced. Oneko cat. It's the little, you know, Chinese luck cat thing, but that's also the name of the application of the cat that chases your cursor around. You can install it. It's in the repositories for probably most Linux distros. And right now I'm showing a video of that. And you actually start multiple instances of it, which I'll do in a moment in the video. And so you can have as many cats as you want chasing your cursor around. When he catches it, he eventually goes to sleep. Um, but yeah, since we talked about that last time, I thought that I'd demonstrate that a little bit. So that's what this video is of. Thoughts, comments, nothing? Yeah, it's
Huh.
just following up
Did,
on something we talked about.
did did Windows earlier versions of Windows had like a full color ginger cat that did basically the same
Oh,
thing?
I'm sure. Like I said, I think there's something in the repositories that has Tux the penguin that does the same thing. I know there were penguins that would fall on your, and there are other applications that this too, but there's specifically one with Tux, kind of like the lemons game, where they fall and you got to do the path. Basically, it would fall onto your window and then walk to the edge and then drop down and do different things. But our topic last time was basically how back in the late '90s, early 2000s, stuff like this was just big, and it kind of died off, but you kind of thought by 2020 we'd have all those cool shaped windows that we talked about last time. Uh, Actually, if I click here, like we talked about last time, like Windows Media Player had all those cool shaped windows, which is really not practical, which is kind of probably why they're gone. But skinning stuff like that was just cool. And it's still doable. Like I said, a couple of years ago, I did a video on doing that with Python and GTK, making different shaped windows. But anyway,
Oh, Windows Media Player,
yeah.
the original, back when it was music.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, I remember all these from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Scary.
So let's see. Oh, next thing on the list I wanted to talk about. Do we even have any viewers yet? We have two, one
Was
of which
that
is
two?
you. So
Only one
whoever's
of me.
watching, you are awesome. Thanks for watching. um, so last time I also talked about video games, and it's video games nowadays. Oh, is Gabe joining us? Gabe has joined us. I have to.
Gabe is the other watcher.
Yeah. All right.
Here.
So there's nobody watching now. It's just you, me, and Gabe.
I'm watching you.
And
Well,
Okay, let
cool.
me see if I can hear here. Wait, I'm trying to figure this out on the laptop.
I gotta
I
reset
got
my
the name of
stuff.
your stream off the text. It's just
There
the
we
same
go.
as the link. Hey Andrew.
Hi, I'm just a set of mouth and torso on the film now.
Yeah, I'm adjusting it.
And I'm in my dungeon.
I thought it'd be easier to adjust than this. Let's see. Let's just do
Three people. We gained a person.
350 crop size, 10, 200,
How do you do this?
And
100.
lost the person.
Can you guys see yourselves at all on the
Nope.
screen? Oh, hi Cynthia.
The one-way street here.
Oh, I might have to stop this and go back.
What did we do wrong? What happened?
No, this is. I didn't have it set up for a three. I should have thought of that ahead of time.
Oh,
Um,
the screen, you mean?
yeah, it was cropping funny, and now that I tried recropping, we're just invisible now.
I see it too.
So
No
let's
one
just.
can see the funny faces I'm making.
Okay,
Yay.
my colors are flashing.
I'm in the furnace room. We don't have furnaces down here, do we?
Hey,
No.
we're back. And we're in a rave.
I think some of the issues I have with cropping stuff is because I don't have a traditional window manager. I use a tiling window manager, and I think that affects stuff. Okay, the colors aren't. No, the colors are still flashing every once in a while.
Yeah, Spider-Man looks like a blur.
Spider-Man?
Yeah.
What Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, there is Spider-Man. I see
Oh,
it.
over there. Yes. That is, I actually got that for Christmas 2 years ago. It's like question, game about Marvel facts and stuff. It's unopened. I mean, the top of the box is open, but I haven't had anyone to play with it. So,
Can you read it, or is it blurry?
can I read it?
Yeah,
I'm here, so I can read it.
but is it actually how it looks, all blurry like that on the box?
Oh look.
Okay. All right. So they didn't print it blurry.
No, and it's not printed backwards either. That's Jitsi.
No,
using
it
the
actually
camera.
doesn't show up backwards. The programmers actually did some nice work on it.
They actually mirrored the images back.
Yes.
So,
Right? You held it up, right, Andrew? You held it up and you saw it too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
good.
so for how many viewers do we have now? Oh, look, you got your little Pac-Man game.
That's what you get for winning Chris's game at Chris's game day.
So yes, we have 3 viewers.
Oh, wait,
no,
see
it
if you
just went to
recognize
0.
You recognize this?
Did I
What
give you
is
that?
Yeah, that was the first game day.
Is the
The
wire
world's
breaking
smallest
there?
mouse?
It was that laptop.
Yeah, little
Packet.
kit with everything. Did it
Yeah,
have
it's
a
coming in handy.
number pad thing too?
That's Kira's in Kira's office. She plays
Ah.
with it.
Everyone
And this, wait.
the disco rave, man.
And this. The USB light.
Oh, that's cool for reading in the dark.
Yeah.
Oh, the colors, the colors.
Reminds me of the thing that went up Arnold's nose in Total Recall.
Yes. I was wondering how long it would take for an Arnold movie to come up in topic with you here, Gabe.
10 seconds.
What to do about this color thing?
What color?
Do you see the colors flashing? It's switching from
It just looks
RGB
blurry.
to BGR or something like that, I think is what we decided.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there's a swap red and blue checkbox.
There we go.
But checking it and unchecking it doesn't do anything.
You look normal, Andrew. Chris is all blurry and washed out and looks like old CGA graphics.
I wonder if that's your internet connection, because you guys look great to me.
Might be you said you have like a cheaper camera?
You have like a separate camera?
I do, yeah. I think Chris's is an older one.
It's not
Mine's-
too old, but it wasn't as nice as I thought it was going to be when I bought it.
Mine's just the one on the laptop. I have no idea what it is.
Oh, I forgot to post.
There's 6 people just watching us talk.
Yes. This is.
Oh, hi, guys.
The screen
Why
is
did it go live? We're live?
Oh yeah, we're live. You don't know
Whoa.
that?
I got my COVID hair on there. How's it going?
Hey, don't worry about it. This is pretty much how our first one went too.
Yeah.
When Chris and I,
We had it down to a science, and then we added a third person, and we're going back to how we were.
but I love the RGB and BGR swap. I think it's just
If it wasn't flickering, I wouldn't care so much.
like someone's gonna have a seizure from watching it.
So frustrating.
Do we know how your live stream did the other day? Hey, that's not bad. 242 views. That's like up there with.
Yeah, most of my videos get between 250 and 500 in the first week, and then nothing after that.
What's up with that?
It's just you get your first views in the first couple of days and stuff like that. What bothers me is I have 50,000 viewers, and like other people with subscribers, and other people with less subscribers will get 20,000 views on one of their videos. It's like, what am I doing wrong? I got the subscribers, just none of them are watching anymore. Did it stop flickering? I think it stopped flickering. Oh.
Yeah. No.
No.
It's almost like the louder we get, the more it
You
flickers.
think it's volume based?
At this point, it has slowed its flicker roll down significantly. Now it's more pulsing or beating.
Mine's not flickering at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
You have to be watching
On
the YouTube
YouTube is
stream.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
stream.
yeah, you got that 57-inch curved IMAX you're looking at.
I actually scrapped the iMac, but I still have the same screen.
No, IMAX.
Yeah, I'm running Windows now.
No, IMAX. MAX, like the movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
well,
he's talking
The
big
big
screen.
curved. You're looking at like a planetarium screen, dude, that you have in your room.
Yep.
This is driving me crazy. The fact people are watching us live going, what are these guys
What is
doing?
this idiot?
Yeah, I'm going to go off. We're not going to be live here for a bit. I'm just going to play some music for the viewers while I get this straightened out. Well, I don't know if I can straighten this out and keep playing music. We will be back shortly. Stop streaming. One, and we are live again. And I don't think we're flickering anymore, and all three of us are on the screen. I am sorry to everybody who was watching. You know, that one guy who was watching us live and probably
We had
laughing
6
at
at one point.
I sold Mario Kart Double Dash for the GameCube for $40.
Well, I gotta
which
watch
is
the
its
ads.
full value. I sold the Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, you don't have to watch the stream. It's playing. I know I clicked to turn on ads. Yeah, the first video I didn't have ads on. It's made 2 cents. The other live videos we've done, I've made about 25 cents on. So I figure I owe you about $1, Andrew,
Yeah.
for joining me. And you
Okay.
guys will split. I'll give you 12.5 cents each for this video.
Freezing up, I think, on the video.
I expect a check in the mail. Also, I take cash.
Oh, and we do have, someone's chatting, and Andrew's been chatting with them. Okay, so, back onto topic. What we were about to talk about is old video games. Okay, Gabe, I want to know your opinion on this, and you too, Andrew. I kind of talked about this last time a little bit. New video games, the graphics, I mean, I don't play, I'm not a gamer. Games, I don't really play very many modern games, but I've seen videos of them. I mean, the graphics are amazing. It's like watching a real life movie for some of these video games, which is impressive in its own right. But for me, I look back at old video games from the 90s and early 2000s. One, I find them more inspirational because I look at those and I go, hey, I could do that. I could make a game that's just as good almost completely by myself. It's also more impressive like games like the original Doom and Duke Nukem 3D, and Quake and games like that where it was primarily like 5 guys would create those games. They might outsource like some sound effects or something like that, but primarily games were made by a handful of people on limited hardware, and they did amazing things. And to me, that's more impressive than newer games. And I'm not saying that newer games aren't impressive, just in a different way, but they're just throwing money. You throw enough money at something, it's going to look good. You know, it's like you pay enough people to create, and where this one guy is working on one model for a year and animating it. To me, that's less impressive than, you know, John Carmack recreating Mario Brothers 3 by himself for PC when big businesses at the time couldn't do it. And I'm going to bring up some examples here. And while it's playing, I'd like to hear the thoughts you guys have on it. But let me go ahead and click on Low Poly Gaming. So I talked about this one. This was a Quake mod, one of the early Quake mods. It started off as a fan project, but then Marvel hired him to actually create a game out of it. And so it's a Quake mod for X-Men. And so Quake 1, you know, so we're looking at what, 1996? And to me, I mean, these characters are low poly, but they look great for the low poly. You
Is
can
that
tell what they
Wolverine
are.
in the background?
I'm sorry, what?
Was that Wolverine in the background?
You'll see Wolverine at some point in the video here. The game starts off in the X-Men mansion. We had Psylocke, and you'll be seeing Cyclops,
Okay.
Gambit,
X-Men
Storm.
Quake mod.
Yeah. So I'm just impressed by this because not only is it inspirational to me, because I could make models like this. I could make a game like this, but it also looks well done and was primarily made by one guy. Now, this game had lots of glitches in it because it was pushed to get out by Christmas, and like I said, it was a fan thing that turned into a legit thing eventually. And after this, I also go into two different Spider-Man games that were only 2 years apart, and there was a big difference between the graphics from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2, from the one Spider-Man game to the next. But while this is playing through, you guys have any thoughts on that yourselves?
I miss old games so much. This is so awesome.
I had some free time a couple weeks ago, and I got lost for hours. I think it was the Internet Archives have
Oh, yep. That's actually where I
like
pulled this
thousands of
copy of this game
free
from.
games that I grew up with. You can play, you can stream them online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can play this right in the
The ones that
browser.
are
I actually downloaded it and played it
yeah,
through
you
Quake.
can
Now Wolverine here, I think looks awesome, and as I was saying to Andrew, each character has two attacks: a faraway attack and a close attack. But you can also, when you play multiplayer, be one of the X-Men, and each of them had their own benefits, and some of them were greatly, more powerful than others. The thing about Wolverine, though, I killed him in the game there, but in about 2 minutes, that character comes back to life. And if you're playing multiplayer, as long as you don't die, your life slowly goes back up as you get hurt. So your life is always going back up. So you could always hide and recover if you needed to in multiplayer mode.
I also love that, like, gore back in the day was like one square pixel of red.
Well, in this game, they obviously, they went as far as having different skins for different amounts of damages. So we're going into the Spider-Man game now. This is a 2000 Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 1, and it's probably about the same quality as that Quake game. But I think this is great. Again, I think it looks good. It's what it is. Again, it's not comparable to today's games as far as graphics. But you got Spider-Man and Black Cat, and the gameplay is fun. Some of it's a little fidgety. But after this, I go into a PlayStation 2 game that was based on the Spider-Man movie, and it was 2002, so 2 years after this. And again, it's PlayStation 2 rather than PlayStation 1. Gameplay is actually a lot the same. The buttons are all the same and stuff like that. But the graphics were definitely a lot better. But still something that I look at and I can go, I have an urge to go and play or make my own video game by playing them. Newer video games, I don't get that inspiration. Not that I play them much, because I'm just like, there's no way I could do that.
Well, for me, it's more about the gameplay than anything else, and I think it speaks volumes that I actually, the first time I ever played a Spider-Man game was a PlayStation 2 version of this.
Which is probably the one that's coming on right now here in a second with the shocker.
And the gameplay is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I think that just tells you how much, because the graphics sucked back in the 90s, they spent so much more time making sure the game was actually fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like so many games nowadays are like copy paste. Like Borderlands is a recent game that got famous literally just because it broke the mold of first person shooters, being run, gun, unlock new guns, keep running and gunning.
Mm-hmm.
And it did it in a weird way because that almost perfectly describes Borderlands.
Can you hear Andrew, Chris?
I can hear him. You're breaking up, Gabe. You're in the red on the bars on Jitsi, so I think your internet's running pretty slow. You're actually frozen right now.
Yeah. But I know, wow, his bit rate's at 255 kilobytes per second.
Are you on Wi-Fi, or are you using your cellular, or what are you doing, Gabe?
I'm on
We may have lost Gabe.
my wonderful Comcast.
But oh, yay, Comcast.
I'm on Comcast, but I don't know. It varies from.
But I have wiring issues in this house that they have yet to fix up in the.
Just run the wire directly from the pole. In my last house, the wire came from the pole to a pole in my house and down, and I ended up disconnecting it from the box outside and just slipping it through my window to my modem. Because that house was so old and the wiring was so old in the house, that was the best way. We had these old crank windows, so it was always just a little cracked. But I just ran the wire right in the window to the modem.
No, they just ran a new wire from the pole to my house. They say the signal from the pole is weak, so all they're doing is bringing a weak signal into my house.
Oh well, if it's before it gets in your house, it's their issue, and they should come fix it, shouldn't they?
Exactly.
But it's Comcast, so this video's looping. So
tell them you want to pay for the higher package, but you obviously need more bitrate to make it worth it. Maybe that'll convince them.
Yeah.
Then when they come out and fix it, just never pay for it.
every year I call Comcast. I just did it a couple of weeks ago. I complain about my pricing because it always goes up, and then they give me the introductory rate, and it goes back down, and I can get lower packages, but I get decent speed for what I'm paying, and I just have to call and make a 10-minute call once a year, and they have no problem. They're just like, oh, we'll give you the new introductory rate for another year, and
My HOA pays for my internet, and I've got fiber, and it's awesome.
yeah, well, can't get fiber out where I live, no man's land.
I'm sure you could. It would just be very expensive.
If I paid for the wires to be laid myself, which is a couple $1,000s a feet or something like that.
Yeah, just spend a few $100,000 and it should be fine.
Yeah. Let me see what I've got in my pockets here.
You've got that new $100,000 bill?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I printed it myself. So, let's see. Anything else you guys want to say about older games versus newer games? And I'm not saying that newer games aren't good. Some, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, old games." I'm just saying gameplay is more important. But for myself, I'm just more inspired by, lower poly stuff. Plus, you can run it on anything. You don't need top of the line hardware. If the gameplay is the same, I think that's better. But See, the thing about games is they're an art, so it's opinion. It's like you can't compare. I could be like, well, Doom is obviously a better game because it runs more efficiently, but that doesn't matter if you don't like it because it's an art.
I don't know. I think older games are definitely better.
Thank you.
I think the creativity. I'm just gonna say it. I'll piss someone off. I think the creativity back then was like, I don't know if more people were on drugs that were doing that or what happened, but like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Cubivore. It's about a cube. Cubivore. It's about a cube. It's on GameCube. It's about a cube that goes around and bites other cubes have little panels, and that's how they denote what level they are. And you go around and you bite other cubes' panels off and get special powers by doing that.
I will also say, were you done?
Well, it's such a crazy game. It's like, who thought of that? How do you think of that? That's art. Today, it's like copy and pasting.
I will also say, I'm going to compare it to old movies. I know some people are like, oh, old movies were so much better, this and that. And part of the issue with that, there's two things, at least when it comes to the movies. Is one, the good movies are the only ones. It's like when people make bad movies, no one's watching them anymore, so you don't remember them. You only remember the good ones. Same with the video games. We remember the good ones. There were a lot of really, 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 really bad games, especially Nintendo games back in the day, and other just a lot of really bad games, and just no one really plays them anymore. But you can get.
Yeah, I spent all my money at Blockbuster renting them all.
Yeah, I remember getting movies or games from the library or Blockbuster, bring them home, and not even be able. Some games you couldn't even figure out how to play. It's like you're just wandering around forever, and you get stuck at a point, and you're like, I have no clue what to do. And there's no internet to ask anybody.
You can buy the game manual.
Yeah, well, there was a big old thing with a copyright thing. I forget what it was, but there was a story with Blockbuster, renting out these games. And I think the issue was there was a lawsuit on whether they were allowed to rent out the games, and then courts said they could rent out the games, but then they caught that the manuals are getting lost, and so Blockbuster was copying the manuals for people when they rented the games, and that was a copyright. So then the game industry went out. There was something along those lines. That may not have been the exact story, but I remember it was a back and forth lawsuit.
Oh, wondering why they got rid of the books.
Yeah, the back and forth with copyright laws, lawsuits, and it's just I win. Oh wait, now you're doing this a little different. We're going to sue you again and see if you win this time, and then I win, then you win, then lose, and this and that.
To some extent, I wonder if that was just like a really big company, Nintendo at the time, going, oh, here's Blockbuster, which is pretty big, but we can put a big dent in them if we just sue them for every little thing and make them spend a lot of money on lawyers.
That's what the big companies normally do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was IBM. There's I don't know if you ever heard this story before, where IBM they brought in a team of lawyers to sue somebody over a copyright thing. I don't remember the whole story, but basically they passed them this thing with like 7 lawsuits, copyright infringements, and the lawyers looking at it, they're like, none of these are legit. There's one or two that you might be able to pass off. The others, there's not even any standing. And all the IBM lawyers turned to each other, whispered for a bit, turned back and said, okay, here's the deal. You're either going to settle, or we're IBM. We have so many copyright and patents. We're just going to find 7 that do work and come back. And the company's like, well, I guess we'll just settle, because it's going to happen either way. But on the topic of Nintendo and old games, I just heard like an hour ago. I watched a video. I guess just like 2 or 3 days ago, there was a big leak. I guess a company that did hardware for a lot of Nintendo stuff got hacked, and the source code for Nintendo 64 and the Wii and a few other things had gotten leaked. So the source code had been dumped online, and people are pulling it.
So I mean, we're going to see a bunch of N64 clones from China in the next, 4 months?
Well, there's already emulators. So the video I was watching, the guy was talking about how, these emulators probably, are they going to use the source code to make the emulators better? And the thing is, well, obviously, if they take the source code directly and put it in there, they're going to get sued by Nintendo because emulators are borderline illegal anyway, So you definitely don't want to do that. But who's to say they're not going to look at it and use that information at least to make, their emulators better, which is just good for everybody because it's just going to make the thing better. I still don't get why they lock down these systems. It's like homebrew is such a big thing that people buy machines just to homebrew, and people, wind back their firmware so they can homebrew. It's like obviously people are buying your system for homebrew. Why don't you just let homebrew? It's just how I am. I just don't get why companies lock things down when it all is going to do. I mean, I don't own the only gaming system I ever owned was my sister had the original Nintendo, and back in the 90s I traded my cable box because you need a cable box to watch cable. I traded my cable box for the Nintendo, and then I had it for a long time. About 2 years ago, I gave it to some friends who have kids who played their original Nintendo, but theirs was going bad, so I gave it to them because I have emulators.
What I don't understand is I can't buy a regular Nintendo 64. If I wanted to buy one from Nintendo, they aren't available.
Right.
So what are you supposed to do? I've got GoldenEye.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, someone actually a year ago gave me a Nintendo Wii. And they gave it to me, and the only reason I took it, because I'm not going to, they gave me a couple of games with it, and it sat next to my TV, never even hooked it up for about 3 weeks, and then I gave it back. And the only reason I took it was because I knew that you could homebrew it and get some other things, and then I said, I don't have time to do that, so I gave it back, because I'm not going to buy any games, and I've got emulators. Now, I will say, let me pull this. I got it hanging on the wall, the other controls are on it. I have 3 or 4 Wii controllers. The Wii. I'm gonna get it so I can have it. Let's see.
Actually, on second thought, I'll be right back.
I've got 2 that are actual Wii ones, and I think I got 2 knockoff ones. And they're when I bought these years ago, like 10 years ago, they were $15-$20. These are, I think, the single best devices for the price. There you go, GoldenEye, that you could buy.
Nice.
These things have they're Bluetooth. You can connect them to your computer. They have motion sensors in them. They have speakers in them. They have an infrared camera in them. I mean, this is an infrared camera, and for $20, you hook it to your computer, and it does all these things. It could be a keyboard. It could be a mouse. It could be a game controller, and that's why I have them. Even though I've never owned a Wii, they made a good product at a good price, and the fast stuff. I guess someone's been working on a port of Mario 64 to run natively on PC, which I guess is good. I mean, you can run it in an emulator now, but I guess having it run natively is even better. And I guess there was a Donkey Kong racing game that never got released that recently got leaked online. And I never get when a company, so many times games end up not being released because they just don't finish in time and they go over budget and the companies go out of business. It's like, why don't you just release the code online? It's like, otherwise it's just sitting there. And the company making the game, depending on whether it's a third-party company or not, may not be able to because of copyright stuff if they're using Donkey Kong, images and stuff like that. But it's like, if you don't finish a game, at least share the code and maybe somebody will. I like that you got Xbox One. Oh, see, he's got Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I get asked all the time if I like Half-Life. I have never played Half-Life, and people look at me like I'm crazy when I say that.
You're
Um,
crazy.
so uh, I feel like I've looked into it. I don't know if I can play it natively. I could probably. I don't think there's a port for Linux, so I'd have to run it through Wine and stuff, which I usually try to avoid doing. Oh, hi Elmo. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh,
Oh, Cookie Monster.
it's the carrot monster.
The Carrot Monster. He's
I
healthier
think they
now.
changed his name is what I heard. Maybe.
You may not want to point your camera at checks with bank account numbers on them, Gabe.
Oh, that's a good idea.
YouTube, it's all pixelated and stuff. How many viewers do we have? I haven't been watching.
2.
2 viewers.
Yay.
Which is
We had 7.
really only one. So it's Andrew and probably this super fine guy. I thought Andrew.
Well,
And me.
I think it's
And me.
me and Gabe.
Is it
Might
really
be
both
me.
of you? You guys are the 2 viewers?
No, I cut my stream off. It was clogging up my.
Oh, is that what was going on? You were streaming to YouTube? That's it.
Oh, then we have one other person, 2 other people just listening to us sit here, try to figure out who the other guy. 4. Wow.
Oh,
It's
mine
amazing.
still says 2 are
Hey, everyone.
watching.
Welcome.
It says 4
You
are
haven't missed
watching.
much.
Oh well, if anybody is watching, I thank you for joining us. Again, this is Andrew. Let me point. Andrew and Gabe, and I'm Chris. We've been talking about old school video game stuff today, and Nintendo leaks, which is something I know very little about. I just heard about, so I thought I'd bring up. Here's something to bring up from back in the day that Andrew's not going to remember, but Gabe might. I'm going back
What are you trying to say here?
Huh?
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that Andrew's like 10 years old.
In my old age, I forget things because apparently I have dementia in my grandfatherly ways.
So, back before Windows XP, so Windows 98, Windows 95.
I might remember this.
Did you know that the password to log in on your machine meant absolutely nothing? And what I mean by that is, when you start up the machine, you could give it a username and password. When you log in, it would load up your theme with your colors and your background and your desktop and the sounds. But if you just hit enter, it would log you in as the default user if you didn't enter any information on Windows machines. So what would happen is you would go to someplace like Office Max or Best Buy, and they would have their computers set after a time to go to screensaver and lock with a password. But all you had to do is hold down the power button until the computer restarted, hit enter, and you're logged in.
Huh.
I miss the good old days, and that's how Windows was until I guess Windows NT would have been the first, or 2000. Windows 2000 was the first, I think, to actually have, because back then with Windows 95 and 98, your hard drives were running FAT32 partition most likely, and there's no rights or permissions on a FAT32 partition. It wasn't until they came out with NTFS. Yeah. So there was absolutely no security, and that it's funny when you say that. It's like back then. I mean, security and permissions have been around on systems, old Unix systems since the 60s and 70s, and here you are 30 years later, and Windows is still just, oh, you want to log in as and have rights to every file on the system? Just hit enter. I just thought I brought that up because I was thinking about it the other day.
It's funny.
Is that better or worse than having some fake security protocol fake the security? I mean, that just goes right in hand with your fake. That is fake security.
That is fake security. Because the password wasn't protecting anything. It was basically just to load your themes and your desktop icons and stuff like that. It was to load your settings, not to secure anything.
I actually think if all of these live streams have had like one consistent theme, I think that's what we end up coming back to, is like the fake BS that goes on in software development.
Mm-hmm. You got a bug, you gotta market it as a feature.
Yep. It's a good way to do it. Hey, allegedly that's what Minecraft did. Creepers were born out of a bug.
Oh yeah.
And those are the little critters that blow up and kill you and then destroy your world if you're not careful.
Ah.
And if you get a skeleton to shoot a creeper, you get a little music disc.
Gabe, do you ever play Minecraft?
No.
No.
I mean, I've dabbled with it. I've never actually got into it and played it.
Yeah,
You never
my kids
played
play Mind Test, which is an open source version of. And as I said to Andrew last week, a lot of people think Mind Test is a ripoff of Minecraft, but they actually both came out within weeks of each other. But they're both actually based on another previous game, so they're both knockoffs. And it's just all about marketing, as far as I can tell. Again, I've played Mind Test a little bit. I think I played Minecraft once just to try it out. I really can't tell the difference. I'm sure there is. But then I've looked up and with kids playing them, and some kids will be like, "Oh, I think this is better," and they both have their opinions, and it's really whatever you're used to, I guess. But I'm sure
I heard
there
they
are differences.
is the whole Earth.
Say that again.
They took satellite imagery from the Earth, and some team, like you said, these small developer groups, if not one single guy, made the whole Earth from Minecraft,
Wow.
inside of Minecraft
Wow,
as a mod.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, people
Do you
do
know?
amazing things with it.
Do you know if Mindtest is open source because your household uses it?
Uh-huh.
Is it free and open source or just open source?
Free as in cost. It doesn't cost anything. If you're asking what license it's under, I can tell you here in a moment. Mind Test Wiki.
And I like Minecraft because I can play it on Xbox. I'm really unconventional in the gaming world because I prefer console controls. There's like guys that prefer console games that hate console controls, especially
Yeah,
when
I'll put a link for you in the chat.
especially when it's like RTS and turn-based strategy.
Can you find it?
I'm sorry.
People absolutely hate console controls, and I love it. Mind Test, as in TEST.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking. Usually a Wikipedia page comes up right away, and you can look at the. I guess I should type Wiki. They're joking.
A little bit of both. I mean, I love the old like RuneScape-esque graphics.
See, I've seen both. I couldn't tell a difference from looking at them last I checked.
Well, let me see when this was posted. 2012. That's why. I miss 2012 graphics.
Why is it so hard? Complying with the license. Oh, here. The code of both Mindtest Engine and Mindtest Game are licensed under the LGPL 2.1. So it's a GPL license. The L stands for the lesser GPL. I don't know exactly what that means. I think it's used for libraries mainly, meaning I think that means I shouldn't say this unless I know for sure. Although I could look up licensing for dummies. There's a website that breaks everything down. LGPL for dummies.
Oh my gosh, it'd be hilarious if I could figure out how to write the seed so that I could throw a point cloud in and have a customer's job site generated in Mindtest.
That would be awesome.
That would be so cool.
Looking at this real quick, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that the LGPL means that because you normally the GPL, if you modify it, any modifications have to be under the GPL. But if it's under the LGPL, I think that means you can same rules apply, but you can use it as a library in another project. So as long as you're not modifying the code, you can use it in another project, something like that. I shouldn't even be talking unless I knew for sure. But it is a GPL, so it is considered a free license as far as I know, as far as opposed to a BSD license of type sorts. Yeah.
Do we know what language it was written in?
Oh, I'm gonna guess C and C++.
Well, the ones I don't know. Not that I really know any of them, but I really don't know those. That'd be so cool if I could. I'm gonna look that up because that'd be cool.
People are. If anyone's watching this live stream, it's just us typing and looking at our screens.
This is gonna be the most interesting one ever. anyone here in watching the video that wants to suggest topics that would be interesting to hear about, let us know. Clouds, permanent spawn point, kids modeling. Maybe pretty cool. It'd be really cool, but I don't think it exists.
Is there not a mind test Wikipedia page? That's so weird.
What was that? You're pretty quiet. Suddenly you got really quiet. Chris?
I'm sorry.
You got you got really quiet suddenly.
I'm just trying to look stuff up. While I'm looking this up, Gabe, you talk.
Yes, I'm here.
What is
I sent a private link to you guys through the meeting room. Something to dabble with.
a private link? Okay, so I don't want to click on it here because people will see it.
You can share it.
I mean, it's just the Internet Archive software library.
Yeah, you ever go through?
Yeah. I'm here all the time.
That's fun.
I actually just donated another $10 to them this morning. Yeah, I support archive.org. I've been, my daughter reads like crazy, and with the libraries closed because of the stay-at-home thing, I've been downloading so many books from the Internet Archive.
That's awesome.
It's just like, because they have a library, it's like, I have an account, all you have to do is click borrow. As long as no one else is borrowing it, you can borrow it for 14 days. And there's a download link that downloads a PDF, but it's an encrypted one with DRM that you have to have Adobe, PDF viewer to view. But you can do it right in the browser, and it just loads it up as images. So I wrote a script that just pulls them all down and creates a PDF. So I basically say borrow, click my script, and then return the book, and she has a PDF on her tablet to read. So.
What's word 5 of line 9 on page 18 in the manual of the Punisher of 1990?
Is that you need that to play the game?
Yes.
Is that what is that game? Is that on that must be a PC game?
Yeah, MS-DOS.
I don't know if I played that. I used to have the Nintendo one, which is a horrible game because you're down the Nintendo one. You're at the bottom of the screen and you have a little target you move around, but you got to move it with the D-pad. So it's like it's basically memorizing where the bad guys are going to pop up. Now there is an arcade side-scrolling Punisher game that's pretty good. Where if you play two-player, it's the Punisher and Nick Fury, and that one's pretty good. But I'm not sure if I played a PC one, and I think that there was a Game Boy one that I never played that I should get. But here's a story. I wanted the Nintendo one so bad because I saw an advertisement for it in a comic book, and this is pre-internet days, and it's like I was trying to find. I was going to KB Toy Store and Walmart and couldn't find it, and I was over in Miami one day with my family. We went to Sawgrass Mall, walked into the KB Toy Store, and there it was, and I had to have it, and luckily I had been looking for it for months. Now it's just like a few clicks and I can download and play it.
I got wrapped up in
mind test stuff.
Or whatever that is. Yeah, my bad.
So this is just something I'm going to confess out here.
Uh-oh.
Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I loved Sony products. I loved them, and I'm one of those people nowadays. I really have no customer loyalty to any company. They don't care about you, so why should I care about them?
Except the Penguin.
But I just wanted to get off my chest that I used to love Sony. I did video work. They just made good video cameras and good digital cameras back in the day. The problem and they made really good computers too, but they were so overpriced. They were the first to make a little handheld Windows XP tablet that was like this thick. And I so wanted one, but it was so expensive. I never did get one. I think you could actually see them using it in one of those National Treasure movies. Where they're hunting for treasures. There's a part where a guy has one of those. Sony they made cool things, but I used to buy Sony. I liked their digital cameras. Were good. They had cameras with optical zooms rather than digital zooms. They were big cameras. I went through a few different. The Mavica is how I said it. I think there's another way you can pronounce it. But I went through 3 of them that took floppy disks, right? Because most cameras at the time took little memory cards, and the memory cards are so expensive, and the floppy disks were slow. I took a picture, I had to wait like 5 seconds before I could take another picture, you know? And oh, what you got there? Oh, there's the
There it is.
little number pad that I got you. Nice.
Yeah.
So the floppy disks were slow, and if I did a 640 by 480 resolution on my pictures, I could fit like 20 of them on a disc. And then when I got the bigger cameras, I could do a higher resolution, but you can only fit like 5 on a disc. Who's that? And for me, it was more important not necessarily having faster pictures, but not running out of the ability to take pictures. Because I'd go places, do jobs, or go on vacation. Floppy disks, I would buy them by the cases of 50. So I about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, I was cleaning out my garage and I threw out, probably like 200 floppy disks. And then like a year later, I was cleaning out something else and I found like another 150 floppy disks. I just had so many floppy disks. I tried a bunch of them. A lot of them just didn't work anymore. But just to have Gabe, you're very distracting.
Gabe's feeling a little green. He's got a green shirt, a green little blobby toy.
Green today.
And then after owning like 3 of those floppy disk cameras, I eventually moved on to getting one of the Sony Mavica cameras that took a CD, a mini CD.
Like I'm almost
The mini CDs.
What's
on
that?
your. Those are SD.
Yeah.
Just
We're so media. I mean, media is so cheap now. So let me see.
and I feel like I'm gonna be pulling them out of everywhere for like the next 10 years. Like I could quit my job today and I'll have 10 years of SD cards.
I still have spindles of discs here. So the mini CDs.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
the camera would take these, 150 megabytes, I think, on these. So you could take a lot of pictures. It was really slow to save. And then you had to, finalize the disc when you were done and stuff like that. And my camera that took this, my first time out in Colorado, which was before I was married, so 2004, 2005. I was walking with the camera over my shoulder and slipped on some ice and landed on the camera.
No.
Busted it. I kept it for a long time. It might still be out in my garage. I think I might have just recently thrown it out. And then I
swear to anyone watching that thinks that Chris might be a hoarder, he's not that bad.
No. I hold on to stuff for longer than I need, but just to make sure, because there are times where I've gotten rid of stuff that I don't think I need, and then I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. So, and then I always love these. These are the little Can you see it better if I hold them?
I never understood those.
Thought off.
It's just like the like these,
but with less space.
Yeah, only 50 megabytes. But for a short period of time, you could label this as a business card, and you give them out. Like I did wedding videos. I give it out, put this in your computer, it would play a sample video. Or when I went to apply for a job at the fire department, I put my resume on one of these, which was just a link to a website, so I could update my resume. And I was told by the guys that hired me, that I work with now, that they were so impressed by this. Not one of them actually put it in a computer, but they were very impressed by it. But yeah, I mean, it's just neat to have mini discs like this. And
did you test it? Did it even work, or did you just like hand them a blank disc?
Oh, it worked. It was just, like I said, it was just some application that loaded up a web browser. It
was a Trojan, so you could hack into the fire department system.
Actually, when I got married, I made these as gifts for people, because I did a whole little I made like a 20-minute engagement video of me and my wife, which we played 5 minutes of before the ceremony, and the rest of it was on one of these discs. But when people put it in the thing, and again, this is back in my Windows days, I wrote something in Visual Basic probably, that when you put it in, so one of the things I loved, I used to love CDs and DVDs. I hate them now. They're so old. You go to use one after years and realize it's not working. I don't like them, but I used to love them because they were just so neat. And on a Windows machine, if you wanted an application to run when the disk was put in, which is obviously a bad idea, but that's how Microsoft went. All you had to do is make a little text file called autorun.ini and tell it what executable you want to run. So I used to make disks that were like computer bombs. You put it in a thing, walk away, and it like erases all the files on the computer. I didn't do that with my wedding disc, but
That'd be so mean.
I gave these out, and
being a groomsman, your computer's wiped.
when people put these in, it would play the video, and I think it also linked them to photos of the wedding. So it opened up a web browser. I think it brought up a menu thing, but it also installed an application to their hard drive, just automatically in the background, because Windows would let you do those things. They still kind of do, but back in the day it was super easy. And I set it to like on certain dates, like I think it was the 1st of every month, or maybe the 4th. I was married on the 4th, so the 4th of every month it would pop up on everyone's computer who put it in their computer. Chris and Jen have been married for 6 months. Chris and Jen have been married for 7 months. and I got people talking to me like a year later. I still don't know how to get rid of that. That still comes up on my computer. I'm like, yeah, well, if you didn't want it to run, you shouldn't have just put a random disk in your Windows machine,
That's funny.
But yeah,
People
discs were fun, and they were so cheap. Huh?
Right? I said, then people aren't like, what the heck, Chris? And you're like, you didn't watch it. You didn't watch it. You're my in-law. Why didn't you watch it?
Yeah. And we are kind of at a turning point now. It's like, it used to be really easy because you get a DVD or a CD for like 10 cents. And so it's easy to just give out a whole bunch of them. And now flash drives and SD cards are real cheap, but not 10 cents cheap. But then but we can share almost everything online. But it's also, you kind of want people to have physical copies too, and you can't trust people to go and download a link you send them. So it's kind of like we're still in limbo land, because most people don't have drives on their computers anymore, But I loved CDs so much. I went through 2 CD printers, where you could get either the printable discs, which were a little more money, or just put the label on there. And I would actually had a printer that would print on the disc. It was so much easier than making labels. Oh, I hated making labels. So, but yeah, I still have spirals of discs because I do still. I don't know. It's been a while. Up until like 2 years ago, I probably still did, like my 5th backup to a disc, but I don't even bother doing that anymore. I don't even know what I'm going to use these for frisbees. Speaking of which, I just had a flashback of the 90s, again, with the AOL discs. Remember AOL get 50,000 free hours or whatever, And I worked at Circuit City at the time, and I think it was AOL version 5.0. They had an issue where it required like 64 megabytes of RAM, but if you only had 32, it would let you install, but then your Windows install would crash, and people's computers were crashing, and we were giving them out free, and so many people were bringing their computers back because they were crashing because of these AOL discs, and I went and I wanted a few of them because a buddy of mine, actually this is probably 2000 or 2001, because it was after I graduated, because my buddy was coming back from West Point, on leave, and we used to play Frisbee together in high school, so I wanted to get him a bunch of these AOL discs as a joke, as they were like little Frisbees, and I got him a whole case of these AOL discs, and I put them inside a Frisbee and wrapped it and gave it to him. And he was in town for like a week, and basically we were just driving around town, and he was randomly throwing them out the window of the car while we were driving. Are you blurring your background?
Yeah.
That's not going to slow things down at all, Gabe.
I was going to ask, so because CDs are so out of fashion now, how many bugs and security issues do you think still exist if you were to put a CD into a Windows machine? Because Windows probably just doesn't even care, because who uses CDs anymore?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they don't do the auto run thing anymore. Which is one of those, again, I was a teenager, and as soon as I figured out how to do that, it's like, oh, I could do all these horrible things. And it's like, you're telling me no one at Microsoft thought that this was a bad idea,
Yeah.
So
they wanted it easy to run a computer at home. They wanted it just to be everything be plug and play.
Yeah,
just work.
Which is just a bad idea. I mean, how hard is it? Before Windows did that, if you wanted to install something, it would come with directions that said, drop this in, and then click your Windows button, run, and type d:/run.exe or whatever, or setup.exe. I don't know.
No.
Um, but or at least give the option. Say, hey, this disk wants to run this, or do you
They
want
did
it to
later.
run? Not that would really fix the problem, because most people would just click yes anyway, which is basically what Windows security is now. I think that might be what Windows does now. I think when they went to Vista,
But they
because
didn't have.
XP did that with Vista, I think you put a disk in and it asked what you wanted to do, run what it wanted to run, open it, or whatever. I think it gave you a few options. Um, yeah, but I'm not sure about Windows 10, and I know that like when you download a Linux distro, usually you still download an ISO that is a dual functionality that you can flash to a hard drive or burn to a disk. But I think if you flash it to a hard drive, it shows or to a if you flash it to a flash
Just
drive, I think it shows up as a CD-ROM drive in Windows, because as far as it knows, it thinks it's a CD-ROM drive.
might.
So you can. So if there is an attack, you can do it with a flash drive now instead of a CD. How many viewers we got now? Any?
Or
4?
a guy with a really bad joke. Don't say that. Just throwing that out there.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think is our first day at this? Tuesday?
No. Our first day. It's our third. Third? Is this our third one?
What you
this is
think?
at least our
You
fifth.
think this is our first day at this?
That's
What you think?
That's
what
Andrew
you
that
think
wrote
this is?
that. That's Andrew that wrote
What
that.
you think this is our first day at this?
He's just repeating himself.
Are you having a stroke?
Gabe, I think you need to turn that background blur off, because it has to upload your image to Jitsi and then download your image blurred, and you are like lagging something.
Well, the broadband should be able to handle this these days. Then.
You would think, but it can't.
in
Fiber.
beta.
If you're trying to hide stuff in the background, I mean, you already gave us your bank account numbers, so.
That's good. How do you take it off here? Oh, these little hamburger.
Andrew's doing
Disable.
fine. You look like
How's that?
you're frozen. Now you're a G. There you go.
Did it work?
You're a G, man.
What's up,
dang.
G?
Nice. That looks good.
I would say that this live stream hasn't been our best, but it hasn't been our worst either.
It hasn't. That's
but,
true.
But the fact that like pretty much no one is watching.
We
What
have
do you think?
four,
First day of this.
3 other people.
I guess slacking
3
source.
people. The 3 people out there that you 3, you matter.
Yes, you do. You guys are super important to be here.
You guys say what's up to Nick Girl?
What's today? Tuesday. We did get more people when we did it on a Friday night. So maybe next time, maybe we should do this again on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So Gabe, since you're here, and it bothers me that how much you have your head at the bottom of the screen, but whatever, it's cool. Give us some Conan the Barbarian quotes.
All you know.
I'm putting him on the spot. He can't handle it. He
All
can't
you-
handle it. Tell everybody how much you loved the 2012 Conan the Barbarian movie.
I don't even remember that one.
Isn't that 2012? Isn't that the one with the Aquaman guy?
Oh, with Aquaman.
The one that was.
He was Aquaman, yeah, right?
I waited
No, he was
8
the,
years to watch that movie because Gabe told me how bad it was.
No, I never thought how bad it was, did I?
You told me it was not good, and I trusted
guess
your
I was-
opinion. I still play, but you set my expectations low, and so
Right.
when I watched it, about a year ago, I was like, it wasn't that bad. But that's the good thing about going in with low expectations. Definitely not as good as the original with Schwarzenegger, the classic. But it was funny because I wanted to watch it, and I Googled list of Conan the Barbarian movies, and it didn't come up in the list. And I'm thinking,
That's
I'm
right.
positive it was a Conan the Barbarian movie. Am I going crazy? So finally I texted Gabe, and he sent me a link to it, and you have to actually type in like Conan the Barbarian 2012 for it to even come up. It's like they're trying to hide it. It was so
Hide it.
so
Exactly.
disliked.
Was it? Do you think it was better than the second Conan?
No, I like
Conan,
the second Conan.
Conan
Second
the
Conan,
Destroyer. They called it.
yeah, Conan the Destroyer, the second one.
The
They
PG.
definitely. These are all movies before Gabe was born, or before Andrew was born.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
10 years before Andrew was born.
So that's your dad, he said, right?
Series Dave the Barbarian, which probably isn't the same thing, but might be just as bad.
The second Conan the Barbarian movie was just they tried to make it more kid friendly, like they put in
Right.
stupid jokes and like toned
Yeah,
down the
decapitations.
violence in the story just to get that kid audience so that probably so they could sell toys. And that was the biggest issue with it. And it was also really weird because he had that little thief guy with him. And in the first movie, they had a thief guy with him, but they were very different style characters. One was like this, he was tough little thief guy that would kill, where the other one's kind of like a comic relief joke. So I'm thinking, are they supposed to be different characters? But then in the beginning of the second movie, they're passing the camel that Conan punched in the first movie. He's like, hey, do you remember this camel over here? I'm like, oh, so I guess he's supposed to be the same guy? I don't know.
He punched a camel?
Yeah, in the first movie, a camel spit in his face, and Conan was
You have to watch it.
super drunk, and
Have you not seen it
forget
yet,
what
Andrew?
happened in the first movie. He punched him. I forget why. Conan was drunk and he punched
spit
the
on
camel and knocked him out.
Because he spit on him.
In the second movie, he spits on him. You know, because Conan's going up, he's like, hey, about what happened last time, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. And the camel spits in his face, and he just goes bonk and knocks the camel out again.
Because he spit on him again.
Yeah.
Knocks him up again.
We're up to
That's
5
Okay.
viewers.
Somebody asked what we thought of the name Elon Musk gave to his child, whatever gender they end up calling that child. What pie guy
What's the name?
was that name?
I'm looking. I don't know. I didn't know Elon Musk. He is going to have a child, or he had a child.
He had one today. He had one with his girlfriend, which is Grimes, the electronic music DJ.
Grimes. Is that what you said?
Grimes. That's her name. Well, that's her stage name.
Oh, but no, but the kid's name.
The kid's name. They haven't named it.
Oh, okay. So what was the question?
And they haven't defined its gen. Yeah. Did he really? He really named it XAEA12? I thought that was a joke. I thought, well, see, this is the problem with Elon Musk, is you never know when he's kidding and when he's serious. And most of the time he's serious even though you think he's kidding. That was how he started the Boring Company. He's like, I'm really bored.
And
So he's made a flip
I started a company called the Boring Company and we're going to make tunnels. And someone was like, haha. And he's like, I'm not kidding. He's like, I just bought a boring machine on eBay. Was pretty much his answer. I mean,
then he made a flamethrower. Did you get that?
and then he made a flamethrower. He's like, I'm going to make a flamethrower and just call it not a flamethrower so that it's not illegal. And then he literally did that. And everyone's like, that's a flamethrower. And he's like, no, it's clearly not a flamethrower.
Not a flamethrower.
it's not throwing the flame; it's just pushing it out.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah, I don't. That's interesting. Do you actually have to say XAEA-12, or is there a way to pronounce it? Because technically, you can spell your name however you want and pronounce it however you want. It's your name, right? I mean, Gabe could spell his name Gabe, but then say it's Sam. You pronounce it Sam.
We say your name is Chris, and it's clearly not.
My name is spelt phonetically proper, unlike most other Chris's, and it's not that uncommon. Now, I do work with another Chris with a K, but he spells his.
With an H.
I've met a few Chris's that KRIS. Most of them spell it TOPHER, and I spell it with an F. And then I've met many who spell it with double Fs. I've only met one other that spells it KRIS TOFER like me. But I work with a guy who spells his name KHRIS. He has the K but the H in there. I'm like, that's different. I've never seen that before.
Your parents just wanted to name you after an awesome weapon.
There's a weapon. Oh, a Chris knife.
A Chris, right?
Yeah, Chris blade. It's got a zigzag blade. Yeah, that's a cool. I need to get one of those.
There you go.
That'll be your first tattoo on your
Yeah.
spine. Let's make it.
Do you remember Red versus Blue, the cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Long
Do,
time ago.
do you remember this? Do you know what I'm talking about, Andrew?
What?
Red versus Blue.
Was that like Halo
About
movie
Yeah,
thing?
the Halo game, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you're talking
Well, some guys made on YouTube a series of cartoons.
about? Video series? Yeah.
Yeah. But there was one where they did a debate. And it was, should you get a tattoo or not? And one of them got to be pro and one of them got to be con. And it was just the best argument against getting a tattoo I thought ever. He's like, think of yourself 10 years ago. Think about what you would have gotten as a tattoo 10 years ago. It was probably something pretty stupid, right? He goes, see, the thing is, you're just as stupid today. It's just going to take you 10 years to realize it.
That's true.
It is true. We're all stupid. You look back at whatever you did 10 years ago and it was stupid.
Somebody convinced me not to get a tattoo when they're like, I just want you to think about what's going to happen when you're 80 years old and it's just a saggy blob. Like, oh.
I always said I wanted to get a tattoo on the bottom of my foot that said, if you can read this, I'm kicking your butt. And then people would be like, well, he wouldn't see it if you were actually kicking his butt.
Okay, here it is, Chris. Here it is.
But what is best in life? The open steppe, free falls, falcons at your wrist, and wind in your hair. Wrong! Conan, what is best in life? Watch your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of your women.
Yeah.
That is good.
That first Conan the Barbarian movie was so good. There are scenes where, for like 5 minutes, there's no dialogue, but it's so well done with the music and James Earl Jones and just like
He made the movie. He made it
his
work.
facial expressions. And then when he does talk, it's James Earl Jones, and he just has
He's
some of
my
the best
favorite
lines
character.
in that movie.
If he spoke, he would jump off of ledges too.
you, come here.
Come here.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, boosh. Again, Andrew has no clue what we're talking about, but. And are you arguing with someone who's calling you my dad again?
No. No.
Hey, what's up, Pops?
Not too much. How are you doing?
Okay, so let's see. I talked about how much I love Sony.
Now I look
I used to
19.
love Sony.
Well, I am pretty close to 19. So, I mean, closer to 19 than, I don't know how old
40.
that is, but probably at least 60. And I'm not close to that.
Yeah, my dad's 66, I think.
There you go. So, yeah, I'm a lot closer to 19. But, I mean, it's one extreme or the other. I can either look really old or really young. And I get to choose. That's the cool thing. And in the construction industry, it's kind of nice. On days when I want to be like an impressive young kid, I get to wear my hat. And on days when I want to be taken a little more seriously, I go with my bald patch.
You're like Superman and Clark Kent.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a great analogy.
So
I heard this the other day. Tell me what you think. The past is what you think you remember about what you think happened at the time you thought it was happening.
is that the whole quote? I feel like I heard that somewhere before.
You probably did. It's popular. The past is what you think you remember about what you think happened at the time you thought it was happening.
Yeah,
There's a lot
sounds
of-
about right.
Maybe that's
Yeah, it's amazing how much stuff we forget too. I mean, so much happens in our
Right.
lives. I'm amazed how much my kids remember. The other day,
Right.
I was pulling my table saw out to use, and which I bought like, I don't know, 3 months ago. My son goes, "Huh, remember the night you put that together? We had just finished watching the movie The Never-Ending Story 2, and then we had a bonfire in the pit, and then you came over here and put together the saw." I'm like, yeah, that sounds probably about right. I'm like, I said to my wife, I don't remember the actress's name. The actress from, remember the TV show Taxi? It's okay, if you don't.
okay.
It was before
How
any of
old
us
is
were
it?
born. It was a 70s TV show. Danny DeVito and a bunch of other famous people now. But there's an actress from that show, and in real life, she's the redhead girl from the show. She has a photographic memory for days. You can give her any date of her from her life. You know, you can say like January 7th, 1998, and she'll be like, "Oh, that was a Tuesday. It rained," and she'll give you facts about that day.
The character or the actual person?
The actual person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want that power or not, but that's still pretty cool.
Wasn't it?
Why LeBron James is so good at basketball because he can remember and recall like that. It's more the recall than it is the memory. They say you remember all that too. You just can't recall.
I see. You're trying to work in another Arnold Schwarzenegger reference here. Total Recall, the remake. What do you think?
I didn't see it.
It was decent. It was decent. I
Do I
mean,
need
it's
to?
not as classic as the original. There were some scenes where they obviously did little throwbacks. Like the movie was different, like the same plot, but then different in ways. But then like there are things where it was like references. I don't want to say if you haven't seen the movie, but I'll say. Is it okay if I talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Like there's one scene in the original where the guy comes in and he says, "Hey, I'm your
Spoiler
doctor."
alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
I'm your doctor, you know, and then he's like, "You need to take this pill or you're going to be stuck in this dream forever." And he looks at him and you see that sweat pouring down his face. And I think the point of that is, why would he be nervous if this was all fake, you know?
Right.
And in this movie, instead of that, it's Jessica Biel as his girlfriend. There's a similar scene, and she's crying, and they zoom in on the tear, just like they zoomed in on his sweat.
Sure.
I think it was kind of like, oh, she really loves him, so this is real, not fake. It was like the reverse, but they did that. And then there's the point where they're going through customs, and there's a lady that looks just like the lady he was in the first movie. You think it's her, but then it ends up he's actually the guy behind him. You know, they did stuff like that. You know,
okay. Basically, it's the same story, same plot.
It's a lot the same and a lot different. It's they're I guess they're on Mars. It's been a long time since in the movie, but in it, you know how they had like the rich people separated from the poor people on Mars, basically. Right. In this, they're on opposite sides of the planet, and it might have been Earth, but they made an elevator that once a day brings all the workers from one side of the Earth to the other, and they use the gravitational pull. So when you get to the center of Earth, everyone's weightless. So then they can have a whole scene where they're fighting in weightlessness and stuff. So it's different but the same. They changed it enough that it's like, yeah, it's a new movie, but they kind of it was good. It was better than like the RoboCop remake.
Right. Yeah, I didn't like that too much.
Again, they tried to tone it down for kids, and RoboCop just isn't a movie like that.
It was a satire.
Yeah.
It was made as a political satire.
I don't even remember most of it. or the remake, I mean.
The remake.
But yeah, the first movie, yeah, all the commercials they had criticizing stuff, and like they had the car, and they had like 5 miles per hour or 5 gallons per mile, you know, whatever. It was just ridiculous. So I don't go on Facebook much. I do and I don't. I go to check to make sure no one's messaged me and to post stuff, but like a year ago, I decided I'm not going to read people's posts on Facebook unless they directly tag me in it or something like that, right? Because it's a waste of time. But like a week ago, I don't know, I think it was just maybe I was bored from this whole stay-at-home stuff. And so I'm just scrolling through looking at some stuff, and I realized how many people I'm friends with that are just crazy. And on both ends of the spectrum. But then I saw this post that rambled on a bunch about a whole bunch of government conspiracy stuff, and I still don't know. Is a guy I knew in high school, so I don't really talk to him much anymore. I don't know if he was putting it there as a joke or not, but it brought up the whole 5G thing when it comes to, and I'm talking about 5G cell tower stuff, not 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. But apparently there are people who are thinking that the coronavirus is so bad because of the cell towers. Have you heard this?
What?
And there's some actors, like Woody Harrelson's one of them, big, pushing a few other big actors. Not that the cell towers cause corona, but the new 5G cell towers are lowering our immune system, and that's why coronavirus is so bad. And it just flashed me back to the 90s when cell phones were new, and people were like, "Are they bad for you? Are you not?" And what is it? I think it was Vertasium. If you ever watched Vertasium on YouTube, they did a good video a year or two ago about it, going over the different arguments and why it may look like this. And then finally, at the end, it's just like, just look at the numbers, how many more cell phones there are, and how many more cell towers there are, and if they're causing cancer, you should see a upward curve matching that in statistics, and you don't. But it's like, there are so many radio waves around us all the time, not just from towers and radio stations and stuff like that, whether you're using a phone or not, but like radiation from the sun is basically the same thing. It's like, why are people thinking this? Because it's on a different frequency, all of a sudden it's going to kill us all. No comments from you guys. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I radiation from the sun isn't that good in high doses either, though.
Right.
And so, like, I get the fear behind it. I think it's a little overblown.
You're sitting there with two big magnets on your head.
Yeah.
I mean,
magnets are good for you, though. We used to sell them when I worked at GNC.
Yeah, they pull the iron to the magnet, which means that area gets more blood.
Something like that.
I had to look that all up before I started selling mag sheaths because I didn't want to end up with someone having like cancer at their hip and finding out it was my magnet. Sad.
Cancer.
The thing is, it's like we already have cell towers. It's just, well, actually, 5G in that case is different than 5G with Wi-Fi. Because 5G, 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi is 5 gigahertz is the frequency. 5G just means fifth generation. It doesn't have anything to do with the wavelength. And I even, I haven't even paid much attention because 3 or 4 years ago I was looking at the possibilities of what they were going to do with the next generation of Wi-Fi. Some like directional antennas, and other stuff like that. I don't even know what they ended up doing.
What Wi-Fi do you use in your house, Chris? 2.4, 5?
My new router has both.
Yeah, what do you connect it to mostly?
I think I set my devices up to connect to both, and whichever one it chooses. Because basically, from my understanding, 5 gigahertz is going to give you better connection up close, but the 2.4 is going to give you longer range. So I don't even pay attention to what my phone connects to. So.
As long as it connects.
Yeah. I mean, with my new router that I got like a year ago, I can go all the way out to my mailbox and still get a weak signal out there, which is impressive because my driveway is pretty long.
Sweet. What's that yellow box behind you?
Oh yeah, I talked about that last week. So, my buddy Key, my buddy Key, right?
I think so. Yeah.
He's been some of the game things. He actually brought that to me at one of my arcade tournaments, I think 2 of them ago. And he's a locksmith, and yes, his name is Key, Key. He gave me that box. It was originally just an enclosure for a wireless keypad, so like you type in, and it unlocks your door. He just gave it to me so I could use it, and I threw some Raspberry Pis in there. But if you actually look at it, I've got one Raspberry Pi hanging right here, and another one hanging right there. So they're not even in the box. I think I have 2 USB hubs in there, and a network splitter and stuff like that. But everything else is just hanging out, so I don't even know why I bothered putting it in the box. I was saying to Andrew last video, I love Raspberry Pis are great, but if I was to redo it in the future, if I ever replace these, I'm just buying myself a cheap Chromebook for my servers and installing Debian on them, because Raspberry Pi is $35 plus a case, plus an SD card, plus a power supply for it, and then I had to get USB hubs that are powered externally so I could power the hard drives that I hook up to them. Altogether, it ended up costing me $100 a piece, or $125. I could have gotten myself a Chromebook, and then I have a screen, so I don't have to plug it into a TV to troubleshoot it. And I'm running Debian either way. And one of those, the clear case up here, is a newer Raspberry Pi, which has 4 gigs. The other one only has either a 1/4 gig of RAM or a 1/2 gig of RAM, and it's slow. I'll SSH into it, and once you get going, it's fine. But it's like it takes a second to like wake up when I log into it and start scanning disks and stuff like that. So
I told him all my servers that I use for stuff, various things.
There's the army. Look at the army.
Yes, that's a lot of vacuums, man.
That's the army of vacuums.
He is a very, very clean person.
That looks like those suck.
Army of Oryx.
Oh, you know what I just realized? Oh, we have 0 people watching,
So
according
we
to.
have 7.
See, my screen says 0.
You got 50,000 subscribers.
Oh, it just
I
went to
have-
7. It just went to
I am
7.
having an in-depth conversation with Pie Guy and Scott.
You know what happened? I was scrolled down on the screen, and I think when I scrolled up, it took a second for it to update the watch views. And earlier, when I thought we only had 2 viewers, it's because I was looking at the number of messages per minute in the chat room, and I thought I was looking at the number of
That's
viewers.
Whoa.
But watching now, 7. Yep.
So
Okay.
Scott wants you to join them on the dark side with Arch.
The radiation is too weak.
Are we going to get into an arch conversation here? This is I'm gonna say.
As in Arch Linux, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I don't really care
Oh, get
too
it,
much
Arch.
what distro people are using. People can choose whatever distro they want. You know, as long as it's Linux, that's what matters most, in my opinion. Arch is great in many ways. It just doesn't groove with me. And the main thing is I tried it for a bit. First of all, I like Debian. It supports more architectures, and I do run Debian on different little devices, and I've had to run it on MIPS devices, and even ARM. Now, this is usually when people go, oh, Arch supports ARM processors. No, there's a separate project that forks Arch and supports ARM, but it's not the initial project, and I used it for a while on one of my, what are those boxes I got you one of, Andrew? The Pogo Plug. I ran Arch on a Pogo Plug for a while, and I had many problems, and I think it was because ARM support with Arch was not fully supported, and it was just giving me issues. So I like that Debian has supports that. Also, and again, I'm not dissing Arch. I'm just saying this is a difference here that's more important to me. I like how Debian, they have way more packages in their official repositories. This is usually where an Arch person comes in and says, well, our AUR, which is their community repositories, have way more than Debian. Well, I don't trust that stuff. If one of the things I liked when I switched from Windows to Linux was I can get pretty much all my software from a trusted source. And for me, if it's not coming from the official repositories, I'm going to ask, why is it not in the official repositories? Is it not stable? Has it not been tested? Do we not trust the person putting it there? It's fine if other people want to go, I trust it. If you trust it, that's great. That's your choice. Everyone has to make a choice on their computer what software they're going to trust and don't. I don't trust a software that isn't officially, the official repositories for my distribution. I take a lot of time picking Debian. And that's just why I don't use Arch. I think Arch is great for many uses. I think their documentation is great. I go there for a lot of my, looking up how to configure stuff. But I just wish that I guess they just don't have enough people to keep their repositories updated to keep things official. I was back, and I said, oh, it's KDE 10. And he goes, oh, well, KDE 11 has been considered stable for almost a year and has been in Arch for almost a year. And my response was, oh, what are the new features I'm missing out on? He's like, oh, well, I don't know what the new features are. I'm like, so what does it matter? And that's another thing with Arch people. They want the absolute newest. And that's fine. Some people want the absolute newest software all the time. With Debian, they're going to push security updates promptly. They always have. I don't need the newest software if the oldest. The only times I've really had to go outside of the Debian repositories was once or twice where a new version of Blender came out, and sometimes it takes a week or two for it to get into the Debian repositories, and I wanted to try the new version of Blender. So, I went to the Blender website and got it. Back in the day when Kdenlive, Live, the video editor, wasn't very stable, I used to go to their website to get older versions. Not newer versions, but older versions I knew that worked. Those are the only 2 times I've really gone outside of the Debian repositories on my main system. I might get stuff from GitHub or GitLab on a test machine, or if it's really a big project that I know and trust from GitLab, or GitHub or whoever. And again, if you want the newest absolute newest, easy to install. Arch is a great way to go. If you're running a server, you definitely don't. And I run Debian unstable on my desktop, so I'm not even running. With Debian, you've got unstable, testing, and stable, which is great. When you get to stable, you've got a rock solid system, and that's what you want to run your servers on, because it's going to get only like updates for like security and little things, so things aren't going to break. I've been using on my desktop, Debian unstable for a long time, and I think I've had two issues. I had one time where Vim stopped working on me, and
Whoa.
I tried uninstalling and reinstalling. I don't even remember what the issue was. I ended up getting it working, but updating it messed something up, and it constantly wants to install new NVIDIA drivers for my video card that my NVIDIA card does not like. So I actually have a command. Anytime I do a full system upgrade, I run the other command that downgrades my video drivers. Otherwise, I restart my machine, and I got like 640 by 40 resolution.
Huh. I did that. I set up a Windows machine. Did we talk about my network error? Yeah, we did on the last one.
with the network drivers.
Well, it couldn't pull the AMD graphics driver because of that. And so I plugged in my Samsung ultra wide. I don't know if it's ultra wide or super ultra wide or what they call this, but it's got a weird aspect ratio on it, and it hated it. I mean, it stretched it, so it took a normal 640 screen or whatever and just pulled it 49 inches, and it started giving me a headache after about 10 minutes. It was that bad.
Yeah. So Andrew's got a super duper duper wide screen. Which how much do you like that? Like, I got two screens. I like having two screens. I'm not sure if I would prefer an extra wide screen, or.
I love it and hate it for some. It's like spreadsheets, video editing. You can't have anything better. I mean, someone's going to argue me and say you could have a 4K HDR, reference monitor, whatever. All right. But for like regular stuff, not cinema quality crap, but like consumer or even like professional grade, but maybe not cinema grade, having, what is it? It's like 35 inches wide. It's just stupid. And if you get the right tiling, like, the key is really the software you use to split your screen into portions, because Windows only lets you do half screen, full screen, or like half up, half down, half down.
You need to switch to Linux with a full tiling window manager. It will take you forever to get used to, but then you will never go back.
Actually, does Adobe allow you to be on Linux? I don't think Adobe has a Linux.
No, probably not. I think there's been talk about it. I hope they never do.
They don't. Yeah, I mean, I literally run Linux on like almost every other machine I have, unless that machine's purpose, like I have a QuickBooks server, and QuickBooks doesn't make Linux. It just
that's
drives
one of
me
those.
nuts.
Most pieces of software, I can suggest things to other people, but accounting software, there's K-Money, which I've heard lots of great things about. But I guess, at least last I checked, and it's been years since I've even looked into this, it doesn't do payroll. And I guess a lot of people use QuickBooks and stuff, use it for payroll and stuff like that. And I guess there's no good option. But don't most QuickBooks things run in the cloud and a web browser now?
If you get QuickBooks Online, but if you're doing any kind of complex business shenanigans, like one of my businesses owns the other two businesses, and then there's another business that's a sister brand that's co-owned by the main brand, and so it gets really complex.
Yeah.
And if you do anything like that, the desktop version's kind of required, and that has to run on Windows. They have a Mac version, but the Mac version sucks.
Yeah.
And it's being depreciated, that's what you want from your accounting software, by the way.
Yeah. Gabe, so when I first met you, you were a Windows user, but I got you to install Linux on at least one of your laptops. And then, like a while later, I asked you about it, and you said that you barely ever use a laptop or desktop now. That you pretty much do everything with your phone. Is that still true?
Right.
Do you and if you have laptops or desktops, what are you currently running?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but yeah, I'm actually using. I'm using. I'll tell you what happened. I'm using a Windows 10. Wait a second. Windows 10 um, Surface.
Oh,
Surface. Okay, so that's a
Okay.
tablet, right? That's
Yeah.
not true because the Surface was
Tablet,
originally their
laptop,
table, right? They
PC.
had the Windows Surface that was a table, which was a cool idea, but
What should have been, right?
yeah.
I think that was their original idea. But yeah, it's the little laptop foldable thing. I got it because when I got my realtor license, I did not know. I could not get answers from the community here what their their programs from the broker needed. So I couldn't get a clear answer whether anything ran on Linux. So I was going to get like a Chromebook, which I probably definitely could have used easily,
Hmm.
or just a distro Linux because everything runs in a web browser anyway.
I figured most things for realtors were in web
Yeah, but
browsers.
back then I didn't know, nor did they have any tech people that could tell me
So next
clearly.
time we get together, we're gonna format that baby,
yeah, swap it over.
and we'll throw Windows into a virtual machine if you need it.
Yep. That's what I need to do. Yeah, but anyway, someone gave it to me, so I couldn't turn it down, unfortunately. So
Yeah, the only thing about virtual machines is you can't pass the GPU through.
Say again.
which one?
You can't pass the graphics drivers through, so you end up with like a decent machine, except that your graphics card doesn't do
You're talking about
anything.
Yeah,
virtually?
it's got a I think it's a hybrid CPU GPU.
He's talking about like a virtual box or something.
Yeah,
I don't know a
Yeah.
lot on topic, but there's KVM. So there are ways, at least with certain operating systems, where you can allow it to access your hardware directly.
Time out. I got an emergency. One second.
Okay. Well, hope all's okay.
yeah, we'll be right back. I think like that would change a lot for me because then I could make a virtual machine if I could pass.
And I haven't really done anything big with it, like gaming or video editing, but I know that I've run virtual machines where I've enabled the KVM, and I just get better performance with like desktop stuff, since a
Yeah.
lot of desktops are very graphical nowadays.
Well, that's what drives me the most nuts about virtual machines is it's like, cool. Everyone can see the hand of my wife.
Hold on. I clicked on. I muted you, Gabe, because I wasn't sure if you're having private conversations or not. So.
But I
See
like
if you
couldn't
can
even
unmute
do
yourself if you need
basic
to,
things
Gabe.
with virtual machines, and that drove me nuts.
But yeah, I guess I've done it with QMU, which is a virtual machine. See if you can unmute yourself, Gabe, because I muted you, but it doesn't seem to let me re-enable your microphone. There you go. But yeah, you can definitely get better performance using KVM. I don't know all the requirements for it. I think you have to have certain hardware that supports it and stuff like that. Look into it, definitely.
I will, because if I'm running the hardware that does it, I would rather run Linux.
Yeah.
So yeah, I use Android. I hate iPhone. Sucks.
Is that a work thing?
Yeah. I don't know why they think it's more secure or something. Not cheaper. I don't know.
It's all marketing. I don't get why companies would give people iPhones when they can get them, $100 Android phone. It's like
Yeah.
you're doing office stuff. You don't need more than that. Why are you spending so much? But it's all marketing.
What does this run? Some version of Linux, I'm assuming.
No, I'm betting it doesn't. I'm betting that it's probably my guess, because there's no boot time or anything. You turn it on, it turns on, right? So I'm betting it's just
Right. That turns out. So yeah. What
they
is it?
probably just rewrote it in the. I doubt it's like a ROM, or I bet it's a recreation. I bet they
Right.
rewrote it for that hardware. Would be my guess. If it was something different, like some of those game controllers you get that you plug into your TV and stuff
Right.
like that, those
Right.
probably.
Yeah. There's no boot. It
Yeah.
just goes right into The game.
So
Yeah.
that is the operating system is the game. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
You go to the
So
village, yeah.
it's like it's one
Like
of
a
those.
microwave. It turns on and that's it.
There's a blurry line there between there's firmware, but then Linux can be the firmware too. Um, yeah, basically it's like programming an Arduino versus installing Linux on a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, so you write the
Right.
code, and now maybe they wrote an emulator for that hardware. That's getting much lower level than I'm used to. But I mean, you can get an Arduino. I have a video on this, and you can hook some wires to it and hook it up to an RCA jack on a TV and display images on it with code right off of an Arduino. So people have written games like that. In fact, there's what's his name, Bunsen Lab or something like that. This guy with an accent. He does great videos on YouTube on hardware stuff like that, and he's created full games on little Arduinos and stuff like that with game controllers that he's designed and 3D printed and stuff like that. And I want to say then there's this other guy, Charles something or other on YouTube, who does a lot of hardware stuff. He actually, I think he set up a Mindtest server that ran also not the client but the server end on an Arduino, I want to say. And he went to a video game conference and had a whole bunch of people connect to it and stuff. Let me see if I can get some links to some of that stuff I'm talking about. But while I'm doing that, I wanted to say, oh, I'm going to bring up a video. Yes. I forgot, I meant to bring this up earlier when I was talking about how much I love Sony, or used to love Sony, and I hate Sony now. They're a horrible company they're one of those companies that they at least used to make good hardware, but everything was so locked down. It's kind of like Samsung. They make some good hardware. I have a Samsung tablet, but it was so hard. I could unlock the bootloader, but they made it so hard. It's just such a pain in the butt to work with. I would never buy a Samsung device again because of it. I'll stick with Motorola because you just say, yes, I'd like to void my warranty and unlock my bootloader. But there was a movie back in the day called Crazy People. Either of you ever see it?
I live it.
For watching it, I think I
So it was, what's his name? Dudley Moore, the actor. And it's been so long, I only saw the movie like once. But basically, he works for an ad agency making ads. And he kind of snaps one day and writes this ad that was like brutally honest, basically, for this airline company saying, you know, we've had this many crashes and this many people have died, but it's half of our competition, so fly with us. And it actually got printed, and people liked the honesty of the ad. But before they found out people liked it, they put him in a mental institution. And so he's hanging out with all these crazy people, so they hire all the crazy people to write ads for the ad agency, right? And the movie ends with a commercial they made for Sony. So I'm going to put this on, but it's going to recrop our screen funny when I bring it up. But
Japanese.
oh no,
They're
that's fine.
short.
So
their eyes are
I'm not
closer
sure
to the
if
electronic
people are gonna
components
hear
than many
audio
other
from the video,
nationalities.
But basically, it's showing, you know, they're talking to this guy from Sony, and they're talking about hidden cameras
Caucasians are too tall and
the
gangly.
workshop, and about
Look how
short
far away the
Japanese
Caucasian
people are.
workers'
And
eyes
it
are
gets
from
them
the
closer
integrated
to
circuitry.
electronics. Where Caucasians over in America are too
That's
tall.
why Sony
So
products
they
are better.
are way too
Sony,
far from the
because
electronics.
Caucasians are
So the
just
slogan
too
is
damn
Sony,
tall.
because Caucasians are just too damn tall. And that's how the movie ended. And that's just the best part of the movie, you know? And then, what was it we were talking about that I was going to look up supposedly while that video was playing? I forgot already. Your memory is what you think you did once that you forgot, whatever you said earlier. Oh, I was going to look up, yes. Let's go 7. I'm looking for the... Oh, this is something I found out today. So I was watching a video from that Charles guy was talking on YouTube. His channel is CNLOHR. And he does a lot of very low-level hardware stuff, but he's talking about writing Android apps entirely in C, compiling them on your computer and pushing to the phone and running them. And it takes like a second for it to all compile and do all this stuff. and which I thought was really neat. And then I looked into it more. You're still on your computer, and this is I hate the way some development works nowadays. You still have to install the Android Studio on your desktop to get that to work, which is like 788 megabytes. It's like that's why I don't do Android development. It's like you want to create a Hello World program, you got to install almost a gig worth of stuff to write Hello World. But I recently did a video showing how to compile C stuff. You can compile C code on your Linux machine and copy it over to an Android device, and it runs fine because it's the Linux kernel. But it's not an Android application. So if you want to use the Android, SDK and stuff like that, you have to install almost a gig worth of stuff. But let's see. I'm trying to get the name of that other channel I was talking about. Just looking for one of his videos in my inbox. Still, I subscribe to a lot of people on YouTube. I should just, if I don't find it here in a second, I'm going to give up. Oh, I just passed it. There it is. So the other guy I'm talking about, Bitluni's lab. So it's BITLUNI''S lab. That guy does some great videos. In fact, I was going to send one of his newest ones to you, Andrew, because he got this super cheap CNC milling machine for making his own circuit boards.
Yeah.
And it was a good video. So he spent $140 on it and was playing around with it, and it was just him playing around with it, so messing up and stuff. But he does some good stuff, and he's done where he's designed video games on an Arduino, and hooked up to a TV with game controllers and sound and everything. And he actually did one where he was sending video wirelessly using an ESP chip to a TV. It's just stuff that blows my mind, way lower level than I'm used to, beyond me.
Yeah. I really want to get that CNC machine working. I've been thinking a lot about it.
Yeah.
There's some CAM software that I was looking at that's like $250 for a lifetime, and it's apparently pretty good, and it's like recommended for the beginner levels.
I want to say the guy I was talking about, Bitluni's lab. In his, he used, what did he use? I want to say he used some free and open source software that supported G code, and isn't that what we used on your CNC machine?
Yep.
So we should look into what he used.
Pretty much. The hard thing about it is, like, you can technically 3D print in G code, but if you tried to design in G code, you'd want to kill yourself. And that's, like, G code's actually pretty easy, and it's got good documentation. The hardest part is figuring out how you get, like, a 3D model. Like, if I'm going to mill this, you have to have a program that can calculate the center of your bit. So you have to be able to put in the thickness of your bit, and then you have your feeds and speeds because of how fast you want to move through a material at a certain RPM. You can only go so fast because material has to be cut, otherwise you just ram into it.
Yeah, he was having issues. He was tweaking it, he broke some bits by going too fast and stuff.
Yeah,
like
it's complicated. So trying to figure out how, a good piece of software makes it way easier because I have the design product side down. Like, I can design something in 3D, but to take it and get a tool path from it is where I fall short. So to turn that 3D model into a tool path, I struggle with. But turning that tool path into G code, there's a lot of projects out there that do that.
I just sent you a link to the video I was talking about. You can watch it later or something like that. You just might find it interesting. CNC
machines are becoming pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said, he spent $140 on, I think, AliExpress on that one, and it worked fairly well for what he was messing with once he fine-tuned it in. And he was, like I said, he had boards with the copper or whatever top, and he was just cutting out his circuit paths and stuff like that, and then cutting out the drill holes for his through socket soldering.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'll have to look it up. Have you ever designed your own PCB?
No, I've watched videos and stuff on it. I've played with Fritzer. Fritzer is software for designing that stuff, and you can, uh, if I remember correctly, get the plans that you can send off or send to a machine, but it also gives you the view for like you have your blueprints on how it's made, but then you also have your blueprints on how it works. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it does both. Fritzer's and it's got like presets for a bunch of electronic components and stuff already in it. And it's in the repositories, I'm pretty sure, on most Linux distros. Let's see. To search.
Fritzing. How? Rashab? Is that how you say your name? I think I might have gotten that right.
You're chatting with people in the room.
I am. Our chat's going quite well tonight.
Thank you for keeping. It's hard for me to
Yeah,
focus
no.
with you guys and that.
My ADD helps me with that a lot.
Hey, Chris and Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One day I need help getting my old raid system up and running somehow.
Yeah, he was talking about that in chat. That'd be awesome. Because I actually really want to learn to raid myself.
Yeah, we were just talking about that in the last video.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea if we can get the hard drives looking at each other again.
Yeah, Fritzing. Is that what you said? Fritzing instead of Fritzer?
Fritzing.
Yeah, that's in the. Sorry. Yeah, I've never
Fritz,
set up a
are you
RAID
a
machine.
Fritzer?
My buddy Austin back in high school had a rated hard drive. I guess there's two different ways you can do a raid.
There's like 6.
6?
It's
Okay.
a raid. It's a raid 0. It's a raid 0. So no backup, of course.
Is it rated like half to half? And so if you lose one hard drive, you lose everything?
Yeah. I did 0 for speed. It was a gaming group, so I needed speed. They didn't have solid state yet, so they had the 10,000 RPM hard drives that just came out.
What you need to do is get rid of the hard drive altogether, get yourself a bunch of RAM, load your operating system, everything to RAM, and just run directly out of RAM. Okay.
They don't make enough RAM on that motherboard. I don't know what file it is. I don't remember. I used to know all the terms.
What year was it?
Old.
What year did you build it, Gabe?
Oh, come on, man. What year were you born? Andrew?
Oh, then that's probably just DDR1.
Yeah, DDR3. DDR3. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
DDR3 back when I was born? Come on. I wasn't born 4 years ago.
Okay, wait. I'll tell you. Wait, I made it in 2000, right around 2000, 2001, maybe.
Yeah, that's got to be.
You were 7?
DDR2, probably. Yeah, whatever, man. Whatever.
Oh, am I wrong?
No? No, you're not. But, I mean, yeah.
Has a Pentium 4. I think it has a Pentium 4 in it.
I've never really been a hardware guy. I mean, I worked for a computer shop putting together hardware. I mean, but computers are pretty simple. It either plugs into that slot or it doesn't. So I mean, last time I built a computer was this one, which Gabe helped me put together. And do you remember when we built that, Gabe? I looked it up the other day.
Absolutely, sure.
Do you remember when it was? How long it's been?
2008? I don't remember. No,
2011.
2011. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was
3
August
years.
of 2011. So, and it's still a great computer. I think someone gave me a couple extra sticks of RAM. And I think I had put in a new solid state at some point. But other than that, it's still all the original hardware, and it's running great for me. So.
I used to say I'm a hardware guy, but the more I've gotten into software, I realize that doesn't really mean anything because I'm kind of in your camp, Chris. It's like, cool, so I can plug crap into it to basically a hole that looks like it fits.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, by saying you're a hardware guy, you're like, I'm not the guy that tries to stick the USB in the Ethernet port. And that's basically all that means. Like, other than that, there's not really a way you can mess it up. Some of the CPUs get weird, and like there's annoying parts like radiator fans that are like super annoying to try to
Nice.
work on.
That's a heat sink. I love heat sinks. That is a heat sink right there.
Yeah, and like, I mean, but if you can work with
Look
paste
at those
and
pipes. Look at those copper pipes.
fine.
You just need some water cooling in that, and you're all set.
No, it's a little i5. It doesn't need water cooling.
Overclock it.
I overclock. We have two thread. I'm actually running this on a Threadripper computer that I brought back from the survey office. It's got 16 cores. One of ours there has 32, and both of those are air cooled.
Nice.
I did liquid cooling on them, and the TR4 socket, the little socket that it has for, well, I say little, it's like that big. For the CPU, it's just it's basically you end up either not covering the whole thing with all-in-ones, or you have to buy like $2,000 of a custom cooling loop, which I really didn't want to do, or you buy a Noctua air cooler that does just about as good a job as a all-in-one water cooler because it gets full thermal coverage, and because Noctua knows what they're doing when they build a heat sink.
Yeah, as far as like the hardware thing, it's, to me, I know we said last time, there are certain cases where you need top of the line hardware. You're gonna do a lot of graphical stuff, whether it's video editing doesn't even take that much unless you're doing a lot of special effects, you know, or if you're trying to do things like you do with the drones and you're trying to make 3D models, 3D stuff like that in video games, that takes a lot of graphics. But most computer stuff, especially when it comes to business stuff, you know,
Yeah.
office stuff, is mostly forms being filled out and stuff calculating. If your office stuff should be able to run on a computer 25, 30 years old. It's just like, I mean, seriously, what in, Gabe, as a realtor, what software do you use that you really think needs to be required for that on hardware that would, you know, let me have that.
What do you say? What hey.
The software you have to use for a realtor,
Yes.
if written properly, is there any of it that you don't think would run on a computer or should be able to run on a computer from 20 years ago? It's mostly
All of
filling
it,
out forms
yeah.
and stuff, right?
Great. As a
Google Maps maybe is probably the most labor intensive.
Google Maps, yeah. I guess some of now of the virtual staging they're
Virtual
using.
staging.
Yeah, they do use some of that, but a lot of that's rendered in the browser side anyway. But you
Yeah,
would,
but realtors aren't gonna mess with that. We just pay someone to do it
Mm-hmm.
because we're late.
But it's just, my point is, like, some software is bloated, but most of what we
A
do
good
is
browser, yeah. You need a good up to date browser with a good internet connection. That's it.
yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, so hardware is important, but not as important in most cases as well written software.
Yeah, like I said, if I knew that, I would never have needed a Windows.
And you know, a lot of people, you know, complain about web applications. I think, depending on what you're doing, there are definitely certainly times where you want something installed on your system. I love web applications, and the two biggest arguments I think I hear when it comes to web stuff is people are concerned, oh, you know, if it's in the cloud, it's on someone else's computer. Run your own server. You know, that's not an issue of doing stuff web based. That's the issue of you depending on somebody else. And then people complain about the speed of stuff, where most of what we do in the business world is filling out forms and getting data from forms, you know, office type stuff, which is all
Right.
run
Yeah, you
fine
can buy a
in
house
browser.
on your phone browser right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
Yep.
and for me, it's like I do almost everything on those Raspberry Pis over there, or on my Films by Chris server. When I'm out and about on my laptop or my phone or a tablet I have, it's like literally, I think your devices should be disposable. Like, obviously, I don't want to throw out this phone because I paid for it. But if this phone was to go through a paper shredder and get crushed, or if my laptop was to go through, or even my desktop here was to get trashed, all my stuff is on 3 different servers, 2 in my house here and 2 elsewhere. And it's like I can load up Linux on any computer or open up any phone, and I can access all my stuff. And that's how I think people should live. It's like you shouldn't be locked down to one device. Everything
Yeah,
should
really.
be on servers that are well backed up, but people should maintain their own servers when possible, so you're not dependent on a third party. And it's really not that hard for a lot of things.
Quick software question for you guys.
Uh-huh.
How come on Jitsi your screen shows up what looks to be non-mirrored, but on YouTube you're mirrored?
Oh,
Mine or yours? You're not. You look like you do. It's mirroring your own. So mine is mirrored because I'm looking at myself, and I'm doing a screen grab for YouTube. So that's why it's showing me mirrored. On YouTube,
Got
you
it.
guys are not mirrored, but on your own computers, you probably are mirrored.
No, what? Okay, I
Raise
see
up-
you
raise
on
up your
Jitsi
right
and
hand.
you're not mirrored, and I see you on YouTube and you are mirrored.
also, Chris, we have a request for you to show your biceps off to the screen. Just thought I should throw that out there. You haven't checked the group chat in a while, I see. It's gotten out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to do a post.
So apparently, to bring you up to speed, Gabe's not allowed to be left alone with anyone's wife because the wife might go for him. Nobody cares about me, and everybody wants to see your biceps. That's where we're at.
Well, now let me just say, 10 years ago or 11 years ago, I tore my left bicep and had to have surgery. So it's a little
So it
different.
really pops now.
So you can see my right is a little different than. There you go, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. But I got a pretty cool scar right here from it.
I'm just waiting for the people that watch this not live and don't have the chat, and they're just.
The chat's there when you rewatch the video. If you watch it on
Oh,
YouTube, it plays the chat back like it's
Oh,
happening.
good. This would be really confusing if not.
I got you. All right, guys. You guys have been awesome.
I
Thank
gotta
you
go
for having
too,
me on.
if you're
This
leaving,
first time
Gabe.
we'll have to do it again or not. Let's see if you'll invite me back.
We
Maybe
will
not.
definitely invite you back.
Yeah, everyone loved you.
Yeah.
Love you
I guess
guys.
We got to
All right.
keep people's wives away
We'll
from you.
talk
as we
more.
move
We
this
got a
on.
lot more to go into. I got priorities. You know what I mean?
What are you doing up?
Priorities.
It's so late. You gotta go to sleep.
Good night, mate.
Good night.
Past the bedtime. All right. We'll talk more fun later. See you guys.
See ya. And Andrew, I've got to head out too. So.
All right, so we'll wrap it up.
And Pie Guy and everybody on the chat. Talk to you soon. Take
Yep.
it easy. Be safe.
We'll do this all again
Bye.
soon. And
Thumbs
I'm
up.
going to end the stream. Bye, everybody.